So, hey guy, welcome to my channel, Fiction Star. The series name is What If Naruto Saved the Uzumaki Clan. This is episode 2. So, let's start the video. Team 3, Uzumaki Naruto, Kage Shuichi, and Shimizu Aoi. Toshiro received 2 cheers and a chuckle from the trio. Naruto was focusing on the idea of being on the same team as his best friends. This caused him to miss the remaining teams being called. Alright, all of you please wait here and your Jounin-sensei should be here soon. Shuichi watched as various other teams were slowly taken from the classroom. He soon noticed that his was the last team sitting in the room / Meanwhile Naruto was busy with his own thoughts. Alright. On a team was Shuichi-kun and Aoi-kun. Team Ramen is a go. Before Naruto could delve any further into his momentarily ramen-obsessed mind, he was interrupted by a loud noise coming from outside the academy room. Not thinking too much of it, he walked over to the side and opened the window to see what was going on. Naruto was what he heard as he was tackled into the opposite wall by a white and purple blur. Kage and Aoi quickly brought out their weapons and prepared to attack the unknown missile. However, just as they were about to charge, the figure had become clear. Tobi has been a good boy, Naruto-chan. And so Kage-sama agreed to Tobi's request. So Tobi gets to finally be Tobi-sensei. Isn't that great, Naruto-chan? The now named Tobi shouted as he shook the limp body of a nearly unconscious Naruto. Tobi wore a pair of purple pants and gloves, with a white form-fitting shirt. Over this he had on a purple, high-collared, long-sleeved mantle that was split down the lower half. Around his waist he wore a simple, light purple obi and a belt. Strapped to his back was a large white gunbai with purple outlines and tomo, connected to a black chain that runs up his right sleeve. Covering the man's face was a white mask that held a ring pattern, spiraling out from a dot in the middle of the mask. There were also 3 tomo-like holes spread equal distance apart on the second ring. Just behind his mask was a small tuft of black hair. Ahem, Tobi-san, I think it would be wise if you let go of my lord, before your shaking kills him, Shuichi stated. Tobi quickly jumped away from Naruto, chuckling nervously as he rubbed the back of his head. Tobi is sorry, Naruto-chan. Naruto sighed as he slowly sat up and stared at the masked man. So, who is the doomed team that managed to get you as a sensei, Tobi? Naruto questioned good-naturedly, as he thought about the time when he and Tobi first met. Flashback. 2 years ago, Uzumaki Tower. Naruto and Raizo stood within the Uzumaki office. As you know, Naruto-sama, each of the major shinobi villages has their own special division. The 12 Guardian Shinobi, the 7 Swordsmen, the Puppet Corps, the Blasting Battalion, and the Kinkaku Force. While each of these groups vary in size, ability, and duty, they are still recognized as the elite of any given village. At this point, Raizo gestured to the 9 figures standing opposite the 2. I would like to present to you Yuzushio's response to these groups, Yuzu's 9 sharks. Their job shall entail the protection of Yuzu in the face of invasion, as well as our main retaliation force. Raizo let out a small smile towards Naruto. Well, what do you think of your newest force, my lord? Naruto looked over the 9 shinobi who kneeled before their lord. They each wore an identical purple outfit and white mask outfit, although the shark kneeling in the center of the group had his black, spiky hair showing, while the other members had masks that covered their entire head. Naruto nodded once before asking the most obvious question, can they see out of the masks? Obvious to him anyways. The center shark jumped up and began to talk in a rather loud, joyful voice. Tobi can see perfectly fine. Though Tobi can understand the question, he asked them that too when they handed out the masks. The name Tobi began to explain. They told Tobi it was a special film covering, or something. I just think they want Tobi to think that they're clever. Hey, want to be Tobi's friend. He ranted. Naruto just stared at the excitable, masked man. I'm sure, I'll be your friend. Naruto suddenly found himself grabbed and twirled around, idly noticing that Raizo was face-palming and the other sharks were trying to get Tobi to stop twirling the daimyo. Yay! Tobi and Naruto-chan can be best friends forever now. Naruto finally found himself placed on the ground as Raizo spoke up with a sigh. Tobi, we do not pick up our lord, we do not twirl our lord, and we certainly do not call our lord. At this he shuddered. Naruto-chan. Raizo then turned to Naruto. I apologize, Naruto-sama. This, as I'm sure you have figured out, is Tobi. He is one of the very few Kage-level shinobi within the village, and the current leader of Yuzu's 9 sharks. Tobi quickly nodded. Tobi is a good boy that will protect Yuzu forever and ever. He started before his voice seemed to take a deeper and almost sinister quality. And I will eradicate any who would harm Yuzu no Kuni. Flashback end. That is an easy one, Naruto. Toby got the team that would benefit everyone best, and that was Team 3, Toby stated triumphantly, causing his newly named team to sweat drop. Alright team, to training ground 22, away! The three teens merely watched their new sensei jump back out the window, running towards the training grounds. Aoi looked at his friend and rival. This is going to be a daily occurrence, isn't it? He questioned, getting a long-suffering sigh and a nod. Training ground 22. Like most of the training grounds of Yuzu, training ground 22 had a large pool of water in the middle, surrounded with grass and a few trees spread out around the ground. The teens arrived, just in time to find their new sensei doodling in the ground with the long hilt of his gun by. Toby popped up as he saw his new students approach. Alright, Toby has read all of your files from the academy, but Toby wants a first-hand experience. So today we are going to spar, so that Toby knows what he has to do for your training. Upon receiving 3 nods, Toby clapped his hands and jumped back away from the teens. Alright. Toby says Scruffles goes first. He stated as he pointed towards Aoi. Aoi nodded his head before he nervously stepped forward. Now Scruffles, no need to be nervous, come at Toby with the intent to kill or don't bother at all. Aoi gulped before gaining a more determined look upon his hooded face. He unsheathed his Jian sword. Aoi held the blade in a reverse grip, pointing up his right arm and with a hooked wire in his left. With his legs slightly bent, he took off towards Toby in a serpentine pattern. Toby allowed the teen to approach him, and just before he could strike him with the sword, he blocked with his gun by. Aoi threw the hook in his left hand towards the masked jounin. He watched as Toby simply shifted to the side, allowing the hook to pass by him and ram into a tree. Aoi, using the momentum of Toby's shift, slid his blade off the gun by and raced around Toby. After his second lap, he ducked down away from the now tied-up jounin and stuck another hook into the ground, quickly locking up the wires that held Toby captive. The hooded genin finally got up as he prepared to run in for the finishing blow on the trapped man, only to find him missing. Is that all you can muster? Pathetic, Toby stated in his darker voice. He was currently sitting in the branches of the tree directly behind Aoi, gunbai swinging on the chain attached to his sleeve and a leg hanging off the branch. If this is all you have, I don't see how you think you could protect your teammates. Perhaps I should just do you all a favor and kill you all before you fail them. It would be a mercy, really. Toby watched as each word seemed to spark something in the young genin. I wonder how far he can be pushed before he snaps and his true potential shines. The records did state that he gets particularly aggressive when Uzumaki-sama is mocked. I wonder. Your crimson-headed friend would likely suffer most of all, you know. Aoi froze up as he heard this. He is rather pretty, for a boy. I could think of a number of slave rings that would pay quite heavily for. Shut up, Aoi gritted out quietly. Beneath his mask Toby smirked. I really hope Uzumaki-sama doesn't hear this next part. As a matter of fact, I might take a go with him myself. It's not like anyone could stop me. Least of all a pathetic little Toby was suddenly cut off by a slash that barely missed his mask. Toby looked at the now crazed-looking Aoi. Aoi's hood had fallen off at some point during his tirade and a mad glint was shining in his eyes. You are going to die for saying those filthy things about the Exalted One, heathen. Aoi stated with a blood-curdling smile adorning his face. Toby stared at the insane genin that now stood before him. Okay, this was not expected. He seems to have picked up his speed and he is definitely trying to kill me now. This Exalted One talk is worrying though. He quickly had to block another strike from the sword and felt multiple wires beginning to surround his body. Aoi appeared to have thrown all his hooks around at once, some bouncing off of each other allowing them to fall around his body, entangling their wires around him. Looking towards the genin, he could see the ends of the wires all hooked into the sword. Aoi quickly pointed the sword towards Toby's heart and raced forward. The next thing he knew, Aoi found himself bound into his own wires, with Toby calmly holding his Jian sword, keeping him wrapped in the wires. We need to have a chat, Toby stated as he stared into Aoi's eyes through his mask. You're not Shimizu Aoi, are you? The academy stated that you could get angry under the right conditions but not to this extent. Aoi just glared back before a dark chuckle reverberated throughout the training ground. True, I'm not Aoi, at least not fully. I am Akuma, devoted servant of the Exalted One, so, going to kill me now, heathen? Doesn't matter really, the Exalted One will be able to take care of you. Toby simply stared back at the crazed genin. Before I answer that, I have a question for you, Akuma-san. Are you a threat to this team or Yuzu? Akuma stared back at the jounin in shock. Why the fuck do you think I would harm the Exalted One? I could care less about Yuzu really, but as long as he considers it home, I suppose it would be bad if it was destroyed. Toby nodded his head in acceptance and cut Akuma free. Akuma was further surprised as he was handed his sword back. What are you doing? We're fighting here, damn it. I refuse to allow you to get your filthy hands on him. Toby sighed. It was a taunt. Akuma-san, I have no intention of harming the daimyo, though I hope you can use this to find your weaknesses and to become stronger. Also, could you please give Aoi back control of the body? I doubt Uzumaki-sama would like to see his friend like this. Akuma simply stared at the masked man, wondering if he should believe him. Finally he decided to trust the man and handed back control to his other self. Aoi found himself looking at his new sensei. He quickly brought his hood back up and sighed. I assume you met him, he stated. Toby nodded. Do your teammates know about Akuma? Aoi shook his head. Tell them before the day is done. Consider it an order. It will do everyone some good to know about what may happen during a mission. The two returned to the waiting Uzumaki and his shadow. Okay, Toby picks tall, pale, and creepy to come next, the sensei stated, reverting back to his foolish persona. Shuichi nodded as he stepped forward, slowly unsheathing his two throwing axes. Please tell me he is not just a pale-haired carbon copy of his father in skill, as well as in personality, Toby thought to himself as the pale genin began to throw his axe. Shuichi threw his axe and smirked as he saw the jounin merely step to the side of the axe. Subtly motioning with his hand, he sent out some chakra to guide his axe to return towards him, coming in a trajectory that would cause it to lodge into the masked man's back. Toby merely sighed, as he once again stepped out of the way of the axe, this time bringing down his gunbai upon the tool, smashing it to pieces. Really, kid, I spar with your father on a daily basis. I'm aware of the tricks with your axes. Shuichi cursed to himself. He raced over towards the nearest tree before turning towards Toby and throwing his last axe at the man. Toby sighed sadly. So this is all he has, huh? He thought as he quickly smashed the axe. Toby turned back to quickly end the disappointing spar, only to find the genin missing. His eyes widened behind his mask as he found himself having to dodge a white blur that came from behind him. The masked jounin landed a few feet away. As the smoke cleared from the last attack, what he saw shocked him. Sticking out of the ground was a bone-like throwing axe, and standing within the shade of another tree stood a smirking Shuichi, his coat hanging loosely around his waist, the teen's belt being the only thing keeping it attached. Toby smirked. So, the little experiment managed to pay off. Shuichi brought up one hand and left it in a half-rat sign, his body slowly sinking into the tree's shadow style, shadow-walking jutsu. Toby watched as the genin disappeared. Having seen enough, Toby decided to end the spar and sent out his chakra to find the hidden genin. Quickly locating the genin's chakra, Toby channeled his chakra through his gunbai as he swung it in Shuichi's direction. This caused a large gust of wind, blowing the genin into the air and pushing him directly into a tree. Before the young Kage could regain his bearings, he found a hand covering his face and a small blade poking at his throat. Toby thinks that this match goes to Toby. The two quickly walked back to their teammates, Shuichi already placing his coat back on and abandoning the now pointless axe holsters. And now it is Naruto-chan's turn, Toby shouted with glee. Naruto nodded to himself before taking out a small scroll from his pants and unrolling it on the ground. He quickly placed some blood on the scroll and channeled his chakra, causing an explosion of smoke. When the smoke cleared, Toby could see Naruto standing in an almost relaxed position, right arm held out defensively in front of his body, legs bent. The biggest surprise, however, came from the scythe he was holding, angled downward, in his covered right hand. So Raizo gave him Kushina's scythe. I wonder if he was taught how to use it, Toby thought to himself as he stared at the familiar weapon. The scythe had a long black handle that formed a cross shape at the bladed end. The blade itself was attached to the right-hand cross and was approximately almost 4 feet long. Toby could still remember all the enemy shinobi that weapon had killed. Naruto gripped his scythe and, like his two teammates, rushed towards his new sensei, scythe extended from his arm. Toby matched him with his gunbai and watched as Naruto used the rebound from the two weapons colliding and spun around, using the blunt end of the scythe to whap the jounin's side. Not the power behind the swing that Kushina would usually have, but he definitely has the technique down, the swirling death. A deadly style that utilizes an opponent's blocks in order to hit them around their guard, made even more deadly with multiple enemies for that side to cleave through. Sadly, the style loses most of its effectiveness when the momentum is lost. Toby began thinking to himself, as he kept blocking and moving with the swirling blade, I wonder what else he can do. Naruto, noticing that, while he was getting hits in, it was always with the blunted end of the scythe and he wasn't strong enough to do any real damage like that yet. Finally he jumped away and began going through a small number of half-hand signs before slamming his left hand to the ground. Uzumaki's secret art. Chains of Repentance. As Naruto thought the name of his jutsu, black chains with a red glow broke from the earth surrounding the masked Jounin, quickly tying him up and attempting to bring him to his knees. Toby began chuckling to himself. Ha! It appears he has been going through his mother's scrolls. Kushina used to love putting us in these chains when we misbehaved. As Toby was brought down, he quickly did a small number of hand seals before he disappeared. Naruto panicked slightly when the Jounin disappeared. Damn it, where did he go? Suddenly he found a hand gripping his ankle and felt himself dragged into the ground, up to his neck. That was a decent attempt, Naruto, but you still have a ways to go before you catch up to Toby. Now let's head back to the rest of my new adorable little students. As the two returned to their teammates, Toby gathered the teens together. Alright, now that we have the sparring done with, introductions. Is there a reason we didn't do this first, Toby-sensei? Questioned Aoi. Toby crossed his arms and nodded seriously. Yes, a very important reason, Toby forgot. Toby received 3 sweat drops as he continued. Toby will go first. Hi, my name is Toby. My likes are redheads, my gunbai, dango, my students, and explosions. My dislikes are certain white-haired, lazy, perverted copycats, a certain egotistical family, and my dango being stolen. My dreams are to ensure that you all become the best that you can be. Aoi spoke next. I'm Shimizu Aoi. My likes are Narukuin, learning new techniques, and water. My dislikes are Shuichi team, dogs, and Kiri. My dreams for the future are to become the future Uzumaki Jounin commander. Naruto shot up as his turn came. I'm Uzumaki Naruto. My likes are my friends ramen, yuzu, gardening, and Raizo. My dislikes are old women, boredom, doors, and arrogance. My dream for the future is to become strong enough to be Uzumaki and guide Yuzu into a shining, golden age Tebane. Naruto quickly covered his mouth and flushed in embarrassment before mumbling, Damn, I thought we had gotten rid of that. Shuichi let out a small smile before speaking. I'm Kage Shuichi. My likes are Naruto-sama, shogi, intelligence, and finding new ways to utilize my bloodline. My dislikes include Aoibaka imbeciles, tomatoes, and those who obstruct my lord's path. My dream for the future is to ensure the safety of Naruto-sama, and that he achieves his dream, not matter the cost. Toby clapped his hands as the last of his new genin finished. Alright, we will meet up here again tomorrow. Aoi, remember to tell your teammates about your condition before we meet up again. Also Naruto-chan. Raizo wanted to speak with you today. Something about a secret that you are now ready to know about. Uzumaki Tower. Raizo was sitting at the desk of the Uzumaki, going through the paperwork that helps to keep the village running. Suddenly he felt a familiar chakra presence in the nearby window sill. You wanted to see me, Aji? Naruto asked from his position in the window. Raizo sighed. Must you use the window, Naruto-sama? I'm fairly sure that the door works perfectly fine. Naruto simply glared at the door that seemed to be mocking him. I don't trust it. We are shinobi. Our job involves sneaking around and then this door thing pops up hiding who knows what behind its closedness. Thinking its simple wooden structure can keep us out, it is a direct insult to our profession, Tebane. Raizo sighed as he pinched the bridge of his nose. As much as I would love to hear another rant about the evils of doors, Naruto-sama, I suppose we should get to the reasons I called you here. As our daimyo and future Uzumaki, it will be up to you to determine various aspects of the village, such as forming alliances and trade routes. Raizo paused as he saw Naruto staring back attentively. Smiling at Naruto's seriousness for the situation, the Kage continued. To that end we have a few requests for alliances and 4 potential trade areas. Each of the trade agreements also include a deal for missions to be sent to us, rather than another village. Finally, remember that we are currently in an alliance with both Tetsu no Kuni and Mizu no Kuni. Naruto nodded as he started with the requests for alliance. Nami no Kuni is close to us, and with how poor it is, most wouldn't look twice at us allying with them. If we can help them get back on their feet, they could become a powerful and grateful ally. On top of it, they only ask that we remove a man named Gato from their land. Raizo nodded his head. Very well thought out, my lord. The land is in a prime location for the shipping of goods and would be a perfect setting for a merchant port. Naruto nodded as he moved on to the trade routes. Maybe Yuki no Kuni and Yu no Kuni would be good options. Raizo hummed to himself. And why would you suggest those two specifically? Naruto thought to himself. Well, I remember learning that Yu no Kuni recently dissolved their hidden village, so we wouldn't have competition for missions there, and as a good tourist attraction, they would be bound to attract various people from other nations. Our reputation would spread faster by work out there. As for Yuki, there have been rumors going around that there is discontent between their daimyo and Yukigekure. They are also known to have advanced technology that could prove to be a great boon for us. The rumored chakra armor would especially be useful for our samurai. Raizo raised an eyebrow. Not for the shinobi? Naruto slowly shook his head. No, I would imagine it is difficult, and probably expensive, to make, while our shinobi could benefit. It wouldn't be cost-effective to use with both groups, and our samurai need an edge if they are to fight other nations. Raizo nodded his head thoughtfully. Very well reasoned, my young lord. We shall agree to the allegiance with Nami and begin preparations to get rid of Gato. I shall also begin setting up trade agreements with Yuki no Kuni and Yu no Kuni. As Naruto smiled at the praise, he noticed Raizo become grimmer than usual. Naruto-sama, he began hesitantly. I need to talk to you about the night your parents died. Naruto expression visibly saddened. Okay. Raizo took a deep breath before he began to speak. On the night of your birth, the Kyubi no Kitsune attacked Konohagakure. Your father Namikaze Minato and Uzumaki Kushina managed to stop it before it could kill you and destroy the village. They did this by utilizing a forbidden Uzumaki sealing jutsu. This jutsu summoned the Shinigami and, with the price of the caster's soul, were able to seal the fox into a newborn vessel. The vessel was you, Naruto. I don't know which of them used the jutsu for sure, though I suspect it was Kushina. I can't imagine her just showing that jutsu to anyone. Naruto stared at the floor for a little while. So my parents sealed a giant nine-tailed fox-like chakra entity into me? At Raizo's nod, he received an unexpected reaction. My parents are awesome, Tebane. Raizo simply chuckled at the exuberant red head. Naruto suddenly sat down in front of the desk and appeared to be meditating. Raizo stared down at the now calm Uzumaki. What are you doing, Naruto-sama? Naruto opened one of his closed eyes. I'm trying to talk to the Q. Naruto suddenly found himself dragged into his mindscape by an unknown force. Naruto slowly took in his new scenery, noticing that he stood in front of a dark, mountainside cave, surrounded by a green, forested landscape. The cafe in front of him was blocked off by a series of metal bars. So, my jailer has come to visit me at last. It has been so lonely in here. Why don't you step closer, you delicious little morsel? Don't you want to see the Kyubi no Kitsune in all of its glory? Naruto slowly stepped closer to the bars as he listened to the deep, baritone voice. The shadows slowly seemed to evaporate from the prison-like cave, finally revealing the Kitsune. So am I all that you were hoping for, Warden? So am I all that you were hoping for, Warden? The Kyubi questioned in a slightly seductive voice. Naruto stood in shock, mouth agape, as he stared at the Kyubi's form. Standing before him was a tall, naked man with dark orange hair, toned muscles and glowing red eyes, with slit-like pupils, like Naruto. The man had claw-like hands and feet, and sharp, pointed teeth. Flowing out behind him were 9 orange tails. However, Naruto found his eyes drawn, a little further south, towards the Kitsune's rather impressive package. Suddenly he was disrupted from his staring by a polite cough. My eyes are up here, Warden, the fox stated with a slight smirk. Naruto blushed at being caught ogling, before he recomposed himself. So, you are the Kyubi then? My, such a cold and straightforward attitude. Here I thought you might be more grateful for the improvements I made to your body. Naruto's eyes widened as he stepped slightly closer to the gate. Wait. Why do you look like a man? I thought you were a giant fox. And what improvements are you talking about? I'm so confused right now, Tebane. His questions being fired out of his mouth as they came to him. The Kyubi palmed his face at his container's idiocy. Finally he stepped right up to the gate and began to explain. First, I am a giant manifestation of fucking chakra. Nothing says I have to look like a fox. It just fits my personality. Second, Did you seriously think that sharp teeth and claws are in any way natural on humans? Naruto merely blushed and scratched the back of his head, causing the Kyuubi to sweat drop. By the sage, and this is my container. Naruto finally calmed down and asked the question he had been meaning to ask since the beginning. Hey Kyuubi, what is your name? The fox's eyes widened slightly before a smirk worked its way onto his face. So you want to know my name, Warden? He questioned. Naruto nodded his head slowly. Then there is a condition. My name should only be whispered. You never know who may be listening, and names have power, even among humans. To hear my name, you must come to the bars, so that it may be whispered to you. Do you agree? The Kyuubi stated. Naruto thought about it for a minute. On the one hand, the Kyuubi could be dangerous if it got a hold of him, though he knew that the fox wouldn't kill him. The seal ensured that. On the other hand, if he didn't learn the fox's name, then the entire effort would have been wasted, and he might miss out on a potential ally. Finally making up his mind, he approached the gate. Warning, Lime ahead! The Kyuubi's grin widened as the teen walked within range. He quickly reached his arm through the bars, grabbing Naruto and pressed the boy's body up against the bars. He could see the slight look of panic in his eyes, smell the fear that was wafting off him. The Kyuubi brought up his other hand and began caressing the redhead's cheek. My. You are even more delicious looking up close. Naruto began to stutter. Why, you see, can't hurt me. The seal will ensure that if I die, then you will too. To Naruto's confusion, the Kyuubi merely chuckled as his hand slowly drifted from his cheek, down his chest. And who said anything about hurting you, my dear Warden? Naruto barely suppressed a moan as he felt the hand slowly work its way into his pants, though he couldn't stop the gasp from escaping him as he felt his manhood being gripped. The Kyuubi took the opportunity presented from Naruto's inner struggle to extend his rather long tongue and drag it slowly up Naruto's neck, to his ear, earning himself a groan of lust from the redhead. You know, your mother came in here once, asking the same thing you did. She didn't trust me, however, he began to state as he stroked his hand faster, forcing Naruto to finally release a moan and begin panting. The fox grinned as he brought Naruto closer to the edge. Her loss, really. Using his other hand to bring Naruto's head closer, Kurama whispered into the teen's ear, just as he felt him tense up. Here's your trust being rewarded, Warden. My name is Lime End. Real world. Kurama! Naruto shouted out as he came back into the real world, face flushed. Naruto looked around as he began panting, noticing that he was back in his bedroom. Maybe it was just a dream, he thought to himself. As he moved around, he noticed that his pants were particularly wet and sticky. A rather vivid dream, he blushed at the reminder. I'm hurt that you would put me up as a mere dream, Warden. The familiar, seductive voice of the Kyuubi shot back at him. Naruto jumped up at hearing Kurama's voice. Where are you? How did you escape the seal? He exclaimed. Kurama chuckled. I'm still inside of you, Warden, perhaps literally if you play your cards right. I used our little intimate moment in order to set up a mental link. Now you can think to me and I can fill your head with naughty thoughts. Naruto blushed at the reminder and innuendo. Perverted fox. I prefer flesh and blood humans, thank you very much, not chakra manifestations. Tebaing. From within the seal, Kurama smiled. Well, you seem to be enjoying yourself while you were in here, little Warden. We'll see how long that preference lasts. Once again Naruto blushed and refused to comment, knowing he couldn't win this battle of words, much to the fox's delight. Looking over at the nightstand, Naruto noticed a letter, addressed from Raizo. My lord, you appeared to have passed out in my office when you decided to speak to the Kyuubi. After ensuring that you were alright, I brought you to your house. Don't forget that you will still have to meet up with your teammates. Your loyal servant Kage Raizo. Naruto smiled as he read the letter. Touched by Raizo's thoughtfulness, he quickly changed his pants and left to his team's training ground, knowing he would have to explain some things. Training Ground 22. Aoi was sitting around the training ground with Tobi-sensei and Shuichi, waiting for Naruto to arrive. He had tried to talk with Tobi about their performance the day before, in order to pass some of the time, but the new sensei had told him to wait. Finally they could see a slightly flushed Naruto arrive to the field. Shuichi noticed the slight flush on Naruto's cheeks. Is everything alright, my lord? You look almost like you're sick? Naruto was about to laugh the comment off but was beaten to the punch by Tobi. Oh my, if Tobi didn't know better, Tobi would say that Naruto-chan got lucky last night. Aoi blushed slightly at the thought of Naruto having sex before a brief surge of jealousy burst in his chest. However, it was swiftly put down by Naruto's response. No, Toby-sensei. It wasn't anything like that, it's just I learned something last night, he began as Toby motioned for him to continue. I have the QB sealed inside of me and he may have did stuff to me before he would give me his name. Naruto ended in one long breath. Shuichi, being one of the two people in the field to catch the last part of Naruto's statement, growled slightly. No one is allowed to take privileges with my lord, I don't care if he is a chakra entity. He thought protectively to himself. Aoi didn't quite understand what was said, but quickly shrugged it off as unimportant. Toby giggled to himself at the thought of what Kyuubi would have done to his little Naruchan. Finally everyone composed themselves and they were able to get back to business. Toby glanced at each of his genin, and began to share his evaluation with Shuichi. Alright Gloomy, you're good with your bloodline and axes. Toby didn't even think you could make them out of your bones. Good job, you also have a decent proficiency level with your shadow techniques. Bad news, your throws are far too slow. Most Chunin would be able to dodge easily, though you may catch other genin by surprise. We will work on your conditioning and making your arms throw faster, and axes is harder. To that end we will start with resistance seals. Toby shall explain later. Next Toby pointed towards Aoi. Toby finds you interesting. Unlike the other two, you do not have clan techniques to fall upon. Though your style is unique enough to catch most enemies off guard and your speed is at least low Chunin, very impressive. That said, your chakra levels are mediocre at best, though this does allow you quite the amount of control. Toby noticed you channeling the energy through your limbs and wires to move faster and have more control over your weapons. For you, you will definitely need to work on your speed as well. We will also need to find you some genjutsu that would complement your style. At Aoi's dutiful nod, Toby turned to his final student, who was now carrying his scythe around on his back. And lastly, Naruchan, your speed and technique were good enough. You even utilized the Uzumaki sealing chains excellently. Sadly you could only use the physical aspects of the chains. You neglected to use them to put any offensive seals on Toby's person. On top of that you are lacking the power behind your blows that would make them truly effective. For you, we will have you focus on your mother's seals and doing our regiment with a gravity seal. At Naruto's nod, Toby quickly grabbed an ink brush and quickly applied the various seals to the team's bodies. Shuichi and Aoi both felt like they were moving against the river current, while Naruto felt like he was carrying around 15 more pounds across his body. Toby jumped up, and now we shall run 3 laps around Uzushio, and a final lap straight to the Uzukage Tower for our first mission. 4 hours later, a tired and sweaty Team 3 panted in front of the Uzukage desk. Raizo merely raised an eyebrow towards Toby before deciding to get to work. Alright, we have several D-rank missions today. Painting a fence, walking some dogs, watching the babies at the orphanage, carrying the fish from the docks, or watering the Kagaya's garden. Which would you like? Aoi's sweat dropped at the missions but didn't say anything, seeing as his friends seemed to expect this to happen. Toby appeared to be thinking over the missions. Toby picks the Bonehead's garden mission. An hour later and Naruto found himself resting back at his house. The mission turned out to have gone surprisingly well. Who would have thought that the clan once known for its bloodthirstiness would be good at gardening? Naruto's perverted tenant decided to make his presence known again. Hey, just because someone likes to fight, doesn't mean they can't enjoy softer things. Naruto blinked in surprise. That was surprisingly deep, coming from you, Kurama. The Kyuubi merely chuckled. Get back in here and I'll show you just how deep I can get, Warden. Naruto sighed, a light blush on his cheeks. And there's the pervert I am growing used to. This is going to be a daily occurrence, isn't it? His only reply was a satisfied chuckle from his tenant. 4 months later. It had been a long and tedious 4 months for the 3 genin. Between ridiculous missions and their slightly insane sensei, they were getting fed up. However, they couldn't deny the progress they had made in their sealing. Naruto was now able to bruise the ribs of a Chunin with the blunt end of his staff. As one unfortunate test subject found out, they made sure to reimburse the poor man for his injury. He had also progressed to his level 4 master of sealing, placing him at about high Chunin level in the field. He was able to apply low explosive and weight seals with his chakra, whether it be through his hands, feet, scythe, or chains. Finally, like his teammates, Naruto had discovered his affinity, and learned a couple new wind jutsu as a result. Shuichi now threw his rib bone axes at a greatly increased rate, and was able to embed them quite deeply into the surrounding trees. Sadly, he wasn't able to progress further into the Kage clan's shadow jutsu, but in exchange he was able to work with a jounin from the Kage clan, who helped him learn the various dances, for when he was forced into a taijutsu fight, he discovered that he had a lightning affinity, though still trying to figure out how to incorporate it into his fighting style, as the jutsu available for him just didn't suit his current style. Aoi, perhaps, made the most improvement. His speed was increased to low jounin levels. He had upgraded his sword so that it could hold all of his wired hooks at once, allowing for a greater range of control. Toby had taught him a few genjutsu that would mess with an opponent's various senses, so that they wouldn't be fully aware of where he was or what was being set up. Aoi had also discovered that he had a water affinity, and while he didn't have the chakra for too many ninjutsu, he was able to perform and use a light version of the hidden mist jutsu. In conjunction with this, Toby had began teaching the young man the beginning of the silent killing technique that the seven swordsmen were famous for. Toby had also brought out and worked with Akuma a little bit, trying to get the young man's second half under a bit more control. It wasn't much, but it would take slightly more to get the bloodthirsty fanatic to go on a killing spree. The team found itself standing before the desk of the interim Uzumaki once again. Raizo stared each of them in the eye, even his lord, checking to make sure they were prepared. Finally nodding to himself, he came to a decision. Team 3, there are 2 missions that you will be required to complete. The team stood up straight at the authoritative tone and waited for Raizo to continue. First, we have a C-rank mission from a tsunami of Nami no Kuni. As a part of an allegiance treaty we are signing with the nation, your team will be required to assassinate Gato. A grim look crossed the Genin's faces, but they nodded in acceptance. We also have word that Tsunami's father left to Konoha, requesting a mission from them as bodyguards. They shouldn't interfere with your mission directly, but be careful, and if you start anything, remember, no witnesses. Your second mission comes from the Mizukage of Kiri. Raizo began getting a flinch from Aoi and a small glare at the floor from the other 2 genin. Raizo smiled at the actions, seeing them as indicating a close bond between the teammates. It would seem that the bloodline faction of Kiri has won their little civil war. The Mizukage is now trying to recall the renegade 7 swordsmen. One such renegade is currently working for Gato, Momochi Zabuza. Due to fearing him not trusting a Kiri messenger, he has decided to ask us to be a third party. Due to a certain set of circumstances, he feels he can trust us. This mission will be a B rank due to having to deal with a known missing nin, as well as the importance of this mission in increasing our reputation and standing among the other villages. Toby performed a quick salute before spinning around to his team. Alright. Toby thinks this mission might take a while, so make sure to pack up. We leave in 2 hours. Mist-covered clearing. Team 7. Fu watched as her perverted, lazy sensei collapsed. Just after the hunter nin took Zabuza's corpse away, she sighed at her misfortune as she moved to carry Kakashi's body towards the client's house. And it looked like it would be such an easy mission too. Despite their client being an insensitive drunk, the mission had been going rather smoothly. They had been warned of potential missing nin being involved and even managed to. After finding a rather badly planned genjutsu of a puddle in the middle of a dry spell, Fu had used her modified Kikeichu to apprehend one of them, her little-tailed beetles, reminiscent of the nanabai she held within her, stinging their new prey with a paralytic toxin, Sasuke swiftly having beheaded the other the moment they emerged for their ambush. From there, however, things just seemed to spiral out of control. They had found themselves accosted by the S-class missing nin, Momochi Zabuza, and after a quick fight in which Kakashi revealed his Sharingan, the lazy Jounin found himself captured. Thankfully, Sasuke managed to think of a plan, combining his Kenjutsu with Fu's insects, forcing Zabuza to release the trapped Jounin. The battle ended soon after, with Kakashi mimicking Zabuza handily. Right before he could deal the final blow, however, a hunter nin beat him to it with a few well-placed Saban needles. Yep, this is a fan-fucking-tastic day, Fu thought to herself as she finished going over the events that lead to her carrying her sensei. It was 3 days later that things seemed to worsen. Kakashi had previously revealed that Zabuza was not dead, and they were all currently sitting around the table eating breakfast. Kakashi quickly sat up and spoke seriously to his team. We have 4 guests approaching the door. Their chakra levels are too high to be mere civilians. Be prepared for a fight, he quickly ordered. Sasuke moved his hand closer to his blade, while his teammates opened their weapon pouches. They suddenly heard a knock on the door. Before Tsunami could answer it, Kakashi stopped her and motioned for Sakura to open the door. She was met with the sight of 3 teenagers, looking about her age. 2 of them had a headband with the swirl mark, typically seen on Chunin and Jounin uniforms. The other teen simply had a pendant around his neck showing the same mark, the last person, seemed to resemble an ANBU with a swirl mask. The ANBU-like man quickly stepped forward. "Hello there, little girl, if your team leader in? We need to have a chat about our respective missions." He quickly looked past her, seeing Kakashi and their respective clients. He came to a decision. Quickly pushing past the red-dressed teen and ignoring her sputtering, he first addressed the clients. "Ah, Tsunami-san. We are the team you requested for your little issue. Tizuna-san, we will have to talk later about hiring teams without talking to your daughter. Never know when you will hire from rival villages." At this, Tizuna began to sweat, for once cursing his alcoholism for making him not think the bodyguard thing through. After watching the interaction, Kakashi decided to speak up. "So, who would you four happen to be, and what would bring four Shinobi to Nami?" Toby crossed his arms and appeared to be pouting, pointedly ignoring the cycloptic jounin. Naruto sighed, seeing as how Toby-sensei doesn't feel like being diplomatic. "I believe that will be my job. I am Uzumaki Naruto. To my right is Shimizu Aoi, and to my left is Kage Shuichi. The childish jounin with us is our sensei Toby." At the mention of Naruto's name, Kakashi's eye widened and his book fell out of his hands. "And Naruto?" Naruto squinted his eyes at Kakashi, before a picture came into his head from when he used to live at the orphanage, an Inu masked ANBU with gravity-defying silver hair, who would play with him various times at night. When no one was watching, Naruto let out a small smile. "It has been a while, Ino Naizen," he said simply. Toby appeared to start crying. "Ah, you're so mean to Toby, Naruchan." Sakura, seeming to get some courage and composure back from Toby's performance, decided to speak up. "Why are you wearing the symbol our village has been using since its founding on your Hitayatesh? Do you realize how disrespectful that is?" She stated as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. The response she received were 4 blank stares from the Shinobi, a face palm from her sensei and her teammates repeatedly bashing their heads into the table. Is this girl serious?" Naruto finally had to question. Aoi appeared to nod seriously. I think she is." Naruto turned to Kakashi. "You want to explain to your genin the issue with the statement she just made?" The silver-haired man simply nodded as he turned to his genin, Sakura. "The symbol you are talking about is the Uzumaki clan symbol. We wear it to show how we honor the Uzumaki for the sacrifices they have made since the founding of our village." Shuichi took that moment to speak up. "In fact, with the formal dissolving of our alliance due to actions from your citizens, the disrespectful party here would be Konoha for still wearing the Uzumaki symbol." Sakura just stared in shocked embarrassment at being called out for her textbook statement, before finally steeling herself. "Well, I'm sure they're not as good as Sasuke-kun. The Uchiha clan is the greatest of all," she stated as her fangirl side decided this was the perfect time to rear its ugly head before foreign shinobi. A dark look crossed over Shuichi's face as he reached within his coat. Naruto simply glared at the pink-haired Kunoichi, and Toby looked almost worriedly at his final genin. Aoi's reaction was perhaps the worst. You could almost hear the snap from within his mind as his hood fell off, revealing a crazed smile on his face. "What did you just say, you pink-haired little bitch? I might suggest that you keep your little mouth shut before someone tears that filthy tongue of yours out of your mouth." Sakura stared in slight fear at the startling change in the genin. Toby quickly put a hand on the mad genin's shoulders. "Akuma, would you like to go hunt for dinner with Toby?" Akuma slowly breathed in and out, remembering the lectures on control before finally nodding. "Fine. I still think little heathens shouldn't be allowed to speak such blasphemous words when in the exalted one's presence." The two quickly left the building before things got bloody. Naruto just sat there rubbing the bridge of his nose in exasperation. Well, at least it took a more direct insult this time. That is slightly better for him. He quickly nodded to the other team before getting up. "Well, as lovely as this whole experience was, I think we should leave. So long, Inu, 7, Uchiha-san, Banshee, Oh, and Tsunami. You can expect his head by the time the bridge has been built." As Naruto left, Shuichi stayed a moment, staring at the pink-haired Kunoichi. "A word of advice, do not mock the Uzumaki in front of myself or Aoi. I can control myself to a degree, but he won't hesitate to slit your throat in your sleep if you push him far enough, and I might just turn a blind eye." With that said, he left a shaken Team 7 and moved to join his teammates. When they finally regained themselves from the display, Fu decided to address her team. "Congratulations, Pinky. You may very well have made an unnecessary enemy for us on this mission. Kakashi-sensei, you seem to know Naruto. Can you tell us anything about him?" Kakashi hummed to himself and thought, "Well, I used to know his mother, back when I was a genin. From what I remember of the stories she taught us, Uzumaki are good with ceiling and sides. In fact, that one he carries looks suspiciously like his mother's. I always did wonder what happened to it. Noticing that his team was paying close attention, he decided to continue. Also, his mother was almost constantly being followed by her shadow, another Kage who was very good with throwing axes. It would appear that young Naruto follows his mother's example quite closely. The cycloptic Jounin set his book down and began to speak seriously. Hopefully we won't have to face them, but if we do, no killing. This is an order from both your sensei and the Hokage. He has issued that unless it is an emergency situation, Uzumaki Naruto is not to be killed or maimed. Team 3. In a clearing away from the small house, the Yuzu shinobi began to prepare camp and cook a boar that Akuma managed to catch before he switched out with Aoi. Alright, Tobi says, gather round. Tobi waited for his team to stand in front of him. Tobi did some recon and Gato would be too troublesome to try and get to from his base. However, there was some juicy gossip going around that he is going to attack the bridge in 4 days. In doing so, he plans to betray Zabuza and kill him while he is weak. This will be the perfect opportunity to complete both of our missions. He paused as he let his team absorb the information, Naruto choosing to speak up next. So, we swoop in to save Zabuza, at the same time gaining his trust while we also kill Gato. Tobi nodded his head excitedly. Correct, Naruto-chan. Shuichi smiled slightly to himself. If this is timed correctly, I might just be able to make a quick trip to Gato's base when this is done, and have a little look at his business. Aoi simply nodded his head tiredly. Now we just have to wait until the day of the bridge attack. Hopefully the Konoha shinobi don't do anything stupid. All of the Yuzu shinobi simply nodded their heads and moved to finish their duties around the camp. The time had finally come. Team 3 had been keeping an eye on the bridge, just in case the rumors Tobi heard turned out to be false. On the 4th day a heavy fog descended upon the bridge. Tobi, having noticed the chakra in the air, immediately recognized the fog as a byproduct of the hidden mist jutsu. Signaling his team to move closer, the Yuzunin entered the fog. Now within the fog, the team could make out Hatake Kakashi already engaged in a fight with Zabuza, who was expertly wielding his Kubikirabocho. Zabuza was a dark brown-haired man with bandages wrapped around his lower face. His chest was bare. He wore gray striped pants accompanied by white and gray camel leg and arm warmers. Finishing his outfit were black shinobi sandals on his feet and an eschewed, slashed kiri hitayate on his forehead. Further from the fighting Jounin was the Uchiha and the teal-haired genin, both surrounded by a dome of ice mirrors. Outside of the fighting, the pink-haired genin was dutifully guarding the bridge builder. Suddenly, Naruto noticed the tide turn for the fighting. Kakashi had broken off from Zabuza, after being cut by a kunai, and was going through a set of hand seals, over at the dome of ice. He could feel a darker chakra emanating in waves. Naruto acted quickly as he moved towards his fellow Jinchuriki as Tobi prepared to intervene between Zabuza and Kakashi. Team 7. Fu had been regretting her decision to step into the ice dome. Whatever the jutsu was that the fake hunter Nin was utilizing, was quite formidable. The mirrors allowed the masked Nin to move too quickly for her bugs to latch on, and the ice was too strong for Sasuke to burn. Finally she saw Sasuke begin to collapse from the onslaught of ice Senbon, and decided to use her last resort. While in the academy, Fu had been introduced to Jiraiya of the Sannin, who had revealed to her her status as a Jinchuriki. He had also worked with her on controlling the Biju's chakra. Currently her limit of power was 1/tail of its chakra. Fu could feel the hive within her hum in pleasure as the Nanabi's chakra coursed throughout her body. A crimson cloak began to expand around her body and a chakra tail sprouted from her lower back. Fu could feel her perception of time slowed down, and she could finally see which mirror the masked Nin was hiding in. She shot forward and crushed the mirror, grabbing the masked Nin by the face. The sudden contact and the burning sensation from the Jinchuriki now corrosive chakra caused the Nin's control of the jutsu to collapse. Just as Fu was about to allow her insects free reign of her captive, she felt a bunch of black chains burst from the bridge and wrap around her, causing her to release the masked Nin. Now 7, we wouldn't want you killing Zabuza's friend over a little misunderstanding, would we? Fu looked to see the black-clothed Yuzu genin from earlier in the week. What are you doing here? And why do you keep calling me 7? Naruto merely smirked. The fox spoke about the beetle. By the way, he says hi, and Naruto quickly silenced himself, a light blush on his cheeks as he mumbled something about perverted foxes, quickly composing himself as he unsheathed his scythe. As for why we are here, It is to fulfill our mission, of course. Fu found a small chill creeping up her spine as the crimson-haired shinobi approached. Shit, this isn't good. I can't move out of these chains. Sasuke is out of commission. Sakura is likely busy with his teammates. And Kakashi-sensei is still dealing with Zabuza. What am I going to do? Over with Kakashi. He had recently summoned his hounds to bind Zabuza and was preparing to ram his lightning-infused hand through the swordsman. Just as he was about to reach the trapped missing Nin, however, a familiar masked, cloaked form appeared, shoving his hand directly down into the bridge. Now Kakashi-san, Tobi, can't let you kill Zabu-chan now. Before Kakashi could question the Yuzu shinobi's presence, he was distracted by the sound of clapping. The fog had finally cleared, revealing Gato on the other side of the bridge. Directly behind the short man was a small army of bandits. It would seem the so-called demon couldn't even take out a bunch of kids and an old man. Pathetic. Zabuza merely glared at his employer. What are you doing here, Gato? Gato just smirked back at the man. You didn't actually think I would pay your ridiculous price, did you? Though I had hoped you would have at least completed your mission. Oh well, bastard. Zabuza shouted as he used his sword to keep himself upright. Gato slammed the end of his cane into the bridge as he addressed his bandits. Kill the men. But bring me the females, we can have some fun with them later. Especially that red-haired one. As his men cheered, they didn't notice the two sources of killing intent that washed over the bridge. Naruto was glaring at the man as he released the chains holding Fu. He stepped between the gathered shinobi and the mass of bandits, quickly noticing the form of a hoodless Aoi standing beside him. Releasing his own killing intent, at his raised eyebrow Akuma spoke. They intend to capture the Exalted One for disgusting reasons. Aoi agreed to let me handle this. Naruto nodded as Akuma began to go through hand seals, water style, hidden mist jutsu. Once again a mist descended upon the bridge, though only on the end this time. The two genin quickly disappeared within the mist, though the jounin could still see them. All the rest of Team 7 saw was blurred figures. Soon the bridge was met with the sound of pierced flesh and pain-filled screams. The battle, if it could truly be called that, ended within 10 minutes. The bandits were poor soldiers to begin with. Add in the fog and it was overkill. Naruto and a now hooded Aoi slowly walked out of the dissipating fog, both covered in blood, with Naruto carrying Gato's severed head in his left hand. Behind them was nothing short of a massacre. The bridge had been bathed in blood and body parts, hanging in the rafters. The Konoha shinobi could see several bodies, strung up by ninja wire. Fu could see Sakura ready to puke at the brutality. Though she didn't really blame her, over near Kakashi, she could see the Yuzu jounin, Tobi, talking with Zabuza and his accomplice. They seemed to be discussing something important as Zabuza reluctantly nodded his head before the two missing nin vanished. Finally she noticed the redhead approach her, his teammates slowly walking behind him. I have a very important question for you, Seven, her fellow Jinchuriki began. Do I really look like a girl? Everyone within earshot almost face planted at the question. Fu finally managed to regain her composure as she studied the teen. Well, now that I get a good look at you, your face is slightly girly, not much but added with the hair length and jewelry. I could see it. At his increased twitching, Fu quickly amended her statement. From a distance, of course. Up close, you're definitely a guy. Naruto growled to himself as he heard Aoi snicker behind him. I'll have you know that this Kensiken was an heirloom of my mother's tebain. At the raised eyebrow he received from Fu, he quickly stomped off, Aoi following behind him. Fu quickly shouted at the retreating teen, Hey, wait! My name is not Seven, it's Fu, damn it! The Konoha genin noticed the redhead's posture go from disgruntled to happy as he turned around and gave her a large grin and a wave. Nice to meet you, Fu. Finally the Yuzu team had left the bridge, heading towards Tazuna's house. It wouldn't be until Team 7 was giving their report on the mission that Fu would notice that the Yuzu team's third genin had been missing from the bridge. Team 3. It didn't take long for Naruto, Aoi, and Tobi to reach Tazuna's house, Gato's head dripping along on the way. Waiting for them outside of the house was Shuichi. Everything is taken care of, Gato's assets have been seized and a decent percentage of his personal fortune has been left to Nami. The fool didn't trust banks to hold his money. Instead he kept it all in a safe behind his painting, along with his important documents, the Kagea reported. The team chuckled as they entered the house, quickly finding Tsunami sitting at the front room's table, drinking a cup of tea. The team sat down before her, gently placing Gato's head on the table. Tsunami took a cold look at the head before addressing the Yuzu team. paying special attention on the Uzumaki. Very well, with this contract complete, I shall formally take up the position of my mother. She let out a small smile. Let's make this official, shall we? As the soon-to-be recognized daimyo of Nami no Kuni I, Mito Tsunami, agreed to the allegiance treaties, proposed by both the Uzukage and the daimyo of Yuzu no Kuni, we shall begin trading in our resources and rebuilding to stand as a strong ally of the Uzumaki as soon as my coronation is complete. The Yuzu team simply nodded their acceptance. We hope to have a long and fruitful relationship with you nation Tsunami Dano, Naruto stated, leaning on his lessons on diplomacy that Raizo had given him when he took up his office as daimyo. The Yuzu team quickly left, no longer having a reason to stay in Nami and returned to Yuzu. Team 7. Team 7 had slowly made their way back to Tizuna's house with their client. While their wounds were surprisingly minor, for what they had to go up against, Sasuke still did need some help walking. As they entered, Tizuna decided to repeat his offer. Look, I know that I misrepresented the mission, but maybe we can make it up with a treaty or something. We have plenty of carpenters that could help in building efforts and… Tizuna was immediately interrupted. Father, while I know your heart is in the right place, please do not be promising anything to people without my knowledge. Tsunami turned her head towards the Fu's team. I am sorry, but a treaty of any kind will not be possible at this time. Tizuna stared at his daughter in shock at her more authoritative voice. Does this mean that? Tsunami nodded. Yes, I am taking up mother's position as daimyo of our country. A tired-looking Sasuke looked up towards his sensei at this before asking in a low voice, I remember the lessons I received from father on politics. I thought only men could be daimyos. Kakashi sighed, rubbing the back of his head before responding lowly. Nami, along with a couple other countries, are predominantly matriarchal societies. Some people, like your father, don't like to acknowledge them. Kakashi turned towards Tsunami and gave her a low bow. Tsunami-sama, if you don't mind me asking, why can't you make a treaty with Konoha? Tsunami put her tea down with a sigh. I'll start by saying that I do appreciate your team's efforts in guarding my father and, upon getting the funds together, we shall pay your village the amount of the A rank this mission should have cost. At this she sent a glare to her father for his underhandedness. However, as part of a contract we had with Yuzu, we were to enter into an alliance with them, due to the reasons for their annulment of the treaty with you and the fact that we are a rebuilding nation. It is my decision that it would not be in our benefit to also form a treaty with Konoha. Kakashi nodded before ushering his team out of the house so they could prepare to finish their mission and head home. Hokage Tower. The aged Hokage smoked on his pipe as he studied the team standing before him. He couldn't help but think of the changes made to the academy and how they were affecting the graduates. While they weren't necessarily getting more jutsu, they were able to have a more varied range of expertise. They also had been able to ensure proper fitness and mentality. I highly doubt this team would have survived, completely intact anyways, prior to these changes. Finally he addressed the team. So, he began, on a C-turned-to-rank mission, your team encountered Yuzu Shinobi, one of which was Naruto-kun and one of the 7 swordsmen of the mist. Furthermore, you failed to secure a treaty between us, and Nami and Zabuza has since disappeared, presumably to join Yuzu. On top of this, you weren't able to secure any of this Gado's assets. Hiruzen sighed, breathing in a calming puff of smoke. On the bright side, the main objective of the mission is complete. We are getting the money for an A-rank mission, and we have earned some goodwill with the daimyo of Nami no Kuni. Finally Hiruzen placed a stamp in each of their files. This mission will be marked as a success. Team 7, please head to the mission office and collect your pay. Kakashi, a moment please. As the genin left, the Sandaime relaxed his posture and addressed Kakashi. How did he seem? Raizo has been sending us periodic updates, but I would like a first-hand account. Kakashi nodded. Physically he was fine. Mentally though, what little I saw makes him look like he is happy with his teammates, but… Hiruzen arched an eyebrow at the pause. Yes? Kakashi sighed. One of his teammates, Shimizu Aoi, appears to be unstable and seems to have a disturbing obsession with him. It almost seems like he reveres Naruto as a kind of god. Also, he seems to have adopted Raizo's penchant for brutality. The Sarutobi nodded his head worriedly. Yes, that is a bit disconcerting. We will have to watch Aoi if they end up coming for the Chunin exams. Finally Hiruzen dismissed the silver-haired jounin and sat back in his chair, calmly smoking on his pipe. It's good to have this confirmation that he is alive. But I can't help but wonder how he has been changed, being raised by that man. Uzukage Tower. Raizo looked over his favorite team. So, you were able to make contact with Zabuza. even saving his accomplice, killed Gato, ensuring our alliance through the new daimyo. Finally, it has come to my attention that the Uzumaki Shipping Corporation has registered its papers, having bases throughout a number of coastal villages. The interim Uzumaki sent a small smirk towards his son, a very successful mission Team 3. I have to ask though, were there any complications with the Konoha team? Toby stepped forward. Not many. Toby and Naruchan were able to stop them from causing a mission failure, and we kept our groups separate. Toby was a good boy. Raizo nodded towards Aoi. I'm glad to see that you were able to control Akuma enough when confronting the Konoha Nin for the first time. Keep up the work. Aoi nodded his head with a small smile, grateful for the praise. Finally Raizo sighed and spoke. Now in the coming weeks Konoha will be hosting the Chunin exams. I shall be sending teams 3 and 4 as representatives of Yuzu. I will also be sending Okasuke along with you Naruto-sama as additional protection while in Konoha. Before you argue, remember you are a daimyo as well as a shinobi. It is your bodyguard's duty to protect you during important events, like the Chunin exams, though he will be letting you take the exams without his interference. Naruto wasn't too happy about still having a guard, but accepted the necessity. Team 3 is dismissed. Naruto-sama, please stay a moment. Once his team was gone, Raizo began to speak. Shuichi ensured that our new acquisition was tied into your name. As such, I need to know if you wanted to manage the company yourself, or utilize an intermediary if you wish for a proxy. I have one on file who has the experience, knowledge, and discretion to perform the job. Naruto seemed to think over the question for a moment. I think it would be best if we use a proxy. I don't know near enough about business to run a company. Raizo nodded. Splendid choice, my lord. I shall inform Biwako-Suzen of his new appointment. Also, I figured you might like a little incentive for the coming exams. If you can make it to the finals, I shall bring your family's summoning contract with me for you to sign when I arrive. I feel that would be the perfect piece of evidence that you are ready to face the boss of the Scrolls clan. Naruto cheered at the thought of gaining a summoning contract before pouting slightly. I still don't get why you can't tell me what summons it is, Aji. Raizo merely chuckled. Behind this desk, I only have so many forms of entertainment, Naruto-sama. Besides, not knowing builds up the anticipation. Naruto's pout seemed to deepen. Seeing that the conversation was over, however, he quickly left through the window and went searching for his friends. As the redhead hopped across the rooftops, he couldn't help but smile as Fu's face crossed his mind. It's good to finally have proof that I'm not alone out there. And here I thought you preferred a mate of the male persuasion. Would you be more responsive towards my feminine form? The Kyuubi's seductive voice echoed throughout his mind. Naruto frowned. Baka Fox, I don't like her like that. She is more of a sister than anything else. Now quiet down for a while. Oh, Naruto-kun so forceful. Why don't you come in here? And Naruto quickly tuned out the kitsune before he could get to graphic, though he knew he would probably pay for that with his dreams the coming night. Suddenly Naruto was stopped by a smooth, silky voice. Ah, if it isn't Naruto-kun. Naruto looked over at the red-cloaked appearance of Kabuto. Hello Kabuto, how can I help you today? Kabuto shrugged. Oh fine, they kicked me out of the hospital again, so I figured I would come and see how one of the few people who could challenge me mentally was doing. I heard that our teams would be going to Konoha together. Think you're up to the challenge? The question being asked almost tauntingly. Naruto laughed. Oh, I'm sure that my team and myself will be fine. I'd be more worried about your team, Kabuto. Please tell me you didn't use your teammates for your weird jutsu. Kabuto frowned, an unnoticeable pout on his face. Now that is just me, Naruto-kun. I am many things, but I would never use my teammates like that while they were alive. Naruto sighed. Well, I suppose that is something. Just watch out for yourselves out there. I don't know what it is, but I think something is going to happen in Konoha. Kabuto nodded as they both said their goodbyes and prepared with their teams for the coming exams. Training Ground 22. Toby stood before his team. Alright folks, over the next week Toby is going to make sure we are all prepared for the Chunin exams. Keep in mind while you are there that you are in what will potentially be enemy territory. Show them no real weaknesses and be careful about what you reveal. The genin nodded as Toby doubled their seals and began having them exercise. Later they would spar, first with Toby, then with each other, then as a team against Toby. This pattern would continue until the day came that they would leave for Konoha, Uzumaki Tower. Raizo was looking down at a message he had received earlier in the week. The nature of the message had been bugging him since he received it, and he wasn't sure about what he should do. The message was from the new Otokage Orochimaru, and it was requesting Yuzu to join Sound in attacking Konoha. While the message didn't reveal who the Odokage was, Raizo was able to quickly narrow down the suspects, since his agents had been tracking Orochimaru to Oto no Kuni. The message also neglected to reveal when the invasion would take place. Raizo was honestly torn on what to do. On the one hand, they could join Oto and if the invasion succeeded, join in the spoils that would come from Konoha's destruction. His vindictive side also relished the idea of crushing the village that had almost caused his young lord's death. On the other hand, he could warn Hiruzen and hope that they believe him and the note. Even if they do believe him and prepare, he would still be making an enemy out of Oto. While not fully concerned about the new Sound Village's strength, he knew to be wary of a person like Orochimaru. Finally, he had the option of remaining neutral. It was likely that this message had been handed out to all of the villages that had confirmed their admittance to the exams and weren't in an alliance with Konoha. Like Suna was, if he could talk with those Kage, he could potentially arrange for an escape plan and for those who don't want anything to do with the invasion, as well as a backup for if Orochimaru takes the rejection badly. Sitting back in his chair, Raizo rubbed his eyes in exasperation. Neutrality would be the best option, but Naruto-sama and Kushina-sama would likely insist on helping Konoha. Raizo finally sat up and came to a decision. He put the Uzumaki seal on the orders and filed them away. I hope this was the right decision, he thought, mentally preparing himself for the shitstorm that the Chunin exams would inevitably become. Team 7 was gathered around their usual training spot. It was nearly time for Kakashi to arrive and Fu was anxious to start training. Why does that pervert always take so damn long? Fu questioned aloud. Suddenly, Kakashi appeared before the annoyed teens. Now, there is no need to speak that way of your beloved sensei, Fu-chan, especially after I signed you 3 up for the Chunin exams. Fu and Sakura cheered. While Sasuke wore a pleased smirk on his face, Kakashi looked down at his team as they each celebrated in their own way. The exams start tomorrow at noon, so be up and ready for the fight of your lives. With that, the lazy Jounin promptly disappeared from the field. Team 7 quickly followed suit, each of the genin doing their own preparations for the coming event. Sasuke trained at his family's training ground. Sakura went to the hospital to look up more books on medical jutsu. Fu meanwhile had been heading to the Aburame compound, in order to practice with her hive. Before she could make it home, however, she was interrupted by a loud shout from around a corner ahead of her. Fu quickly raced around the corner, preparing her beetles for a fight. Rounding the corner, she sees a brown-haired academy student with a green long-sleeved shirt, gray pants, and blue shinobi sandals. Around the student's neck was a recognizable long blue scarf. Fu quickly recognized the student as the Hokage's grandson, Sarutobi Konohamaru. Holding Konohamaru by the scarf was a teen wearing purple makeup on his face and a black, cat-like bodysuit. On his back was a large, bandage-wrapped package with a brown tuft of hair sticking out of the top of it. Fu could just make out a Suna Hitaiite on his hood. The Nanabai Jinchuriki calmed down as she approached the situation, knowing that the boys' A and BU guards would likely intervene if the situation deteriorated too badly. As she approached, she could hear the Suna shinobi talking. You should watch where you're going, Gaki. Back home, this kind of disrespect would cost you a hand. Now apologize. The Suna shinobi stated aggressively. Konohamaru glared back at the foreign shinobi. I'm not apologizing. You ran into me, you damned makeup freak. The Suna shinobi growled and brought his fist up, preparing to punch the young Sarutobi. However, just before his fist could land, he felt a presence appear behind him, with a long knife at his throat. Fu jumped at the newcomer's sudden appearance. She had been preparing to interrupt herself, before the new teen arrived. Standing behind the Suna shinobi, Fu could just make out a spiky black-haired individual. The teen was bare-chested and had black sleeves, wrapped in red straps covering most of his arms. He wore black pants that had the ends wrapped in red, leather straps, and black shinobi sandals on his feet. Around the boy's waist was a red-clothed Yuzu Hitaiite, being used as a belt. Finally, Fu could just make out an odd necklace around his neck. It was made of red beads that lead to a silver, upside-down triangle within a circle. The Yuzu shinobi wore a disturbing grin on his face, his killing intent filling the area. Well now, here I was thinking that it would be difficult to find the perfect offerings for Jashin-sama. Then I come across a boy and his abuser. I wonder which of you will be missed when you disappear. Fu decided to finally speak up. Before the crazed shinobi did anything regretful, she coughed into her hand, gaining the trio's attention. Excuse me, foreign shinobi. It would be in your best interest to drop the Hokage's grandson. The Yuzu shinobi merely blinked at Fu for a moment, apparently only just noticing her presence. The Suna shinobi, however, quickly dropped the academy student. Konohamaru quickly ran to Fu's side. Thanks for the help, Fu-chan. Fu merely nodded, keeping her eyes on the foreign shinobi as she motioned for Konohamaru to leave. The academy student quickly took the hint and raced off to his home. Now I assume you two are here for the Chunin exams? Your handlers should be here with you, especially if you are wandering around the village, Fu stated calmly, hoping to prevent an international incident between Suna and Yuzu. The Suna shinobi began to sweat, still feeling the knife at his neck. Well, you see, I wanted to take a little walk around, get some air. I promised to head right back. Just help me out of here, damn it. The last bit being barely audible. Fu looked at the Yuzu shinobi, who merely shrugged his shoulders as he began to remove his knife. I didn't feel like sticking around the fucker, so I slipped away. As the knife was removed, the Suna shinobi quickly fled the area, leaving Fu alone with the strange shinobi. The black-haired teen seemed to be listening to something Fu couldn't hear before he started nodding to himself. He quickly disappeared from Fu's sight, only to reappear moments later with his arm draped around her shoulder. Now let me tell you, my dear, Jashin has informed me that you would be a prime priestess of his glory. Would you allow me the pleasure of opening you up to our Lord's glory? Fu began to shudder at the disturbing teen, quickly freezing as he began to rub her shoulder and press his body closer to hers. I would love to show you his painful ecstasy. Before the Yuzu shinobi could continue, he found his arm being attacked by a small swarm of seven-tailed beetles. He quickly grabbed his arm and began rolling around, screaming out as they burrowed into his skin. Fucking motherfucker, son of a bitch! Fu watched as he began to dig out her insects, thankful that they had been able to stop him in her moment of weakness. Finally the teen had managed to pull off the bugs. As Fu began to recall them into her body, the teen's arm now being a mess of blood and flesh, the girl simply glared at him. I don't know who you are or what the hell Jashin is, but if you come near me again, I'll let my hide devour you whole, creep. The teen began to laugh and seemed to give her an almost genuine smile, if somewhat tinged with insanity. My dear, you may call me Menma and I will be more than pleased to educate you in Jashin's glory. Now hold still. The Yuzu shinobi quickly stood up straight before sighing. Never mind, my team needs me. Hopefully I will be seeing you in the exams, beautiful. Finally the fanatical teen disappeared, leaving a relieved Fu alone. Shit. Is this the kind of monster that other villages actually send to the exams? We really need to be ready. Hokage Tower. Naruto and his team sat across from the Hokage, having been called up to his office almost immediately after signing in at the gate. Naruto looked at the elderly Hokage suspiciously. Something about him seemed familiar. Hiruzen studied the Yuzu shinobi before him. First there was the masked Tobi. The man had an upbeat personality, but something seemed off about him. He had heard some disturbing things about the hooded Aoi, but it seemed like his team could at least control him. Then there was Shuichi. While he had many Kage characteristics, his attitude and manners had quickly given away his Kage heritage. Then there was the genin that the elderly man was most interested in, Uzumaki Naruto, who appeared to be studying him just as much as he was them. Finally he was slightly surprised to recognize Okisuke, a man who used to work closely with Mifune. I wonder how Naruto managed to obtain the services of someone who Mifune seemed to think so highly of. The Hokage chuckled to himself before finally speaking. It is good to finally see you again, Naruto-kun. Naruto's eyes widened suddenly as a memory of a man in white and red robes with a familiar-looking hat appeared in his head. Old man. Hiruzen chuckled as he was tackled into a hug by the crimson-haired teen. The moment ended quickly enough, though the elderly Hokage felt a great weight be removed from his shoulders. His face soon became more serious. Now I didn't just call you here to reunite Naruto-kun, as you are your country's daimyo. I had a question about your other team that I would like answered. Naruto quickly nodded, already having an idea of what this was about, and became far more serious than he usually was. So long as national secrets aren't involved, I will try to ease your worries. Hiruzen looked down at Team 4's registration papers. Raizo placed a warning regarding one Menma, along with his registry, stating that he was a part of a Jashinist sect within Yuzu. I was only able to do some digging recently regarding this religious group, and what I have found concerns me. Could you please explain more and hopefully put my worries to rest? Naruto sighed. It's a little-known fact that, due to certain circumstances, a sect of Jansenists pledged eternal loyalty to my clan shortly after the Warring Clans era. Because of these circumstances, the clan head of the Uzumaki is the only one allowed to commit heresies against their god, without reprisal. As for the religion itself, I can only say that their beliefs compel them to sacrifice human lives. In order to appease their god, Menma has been warned against using your citizens as sacrifices, though if the exams still allow for killing, I would expect a number of deaths at his hands. Hiruzen nodded slowly as he took a puff on his pipe. Can you control him if he steps out of line? Naruto quickly nodded. There have been a number of times that we have had to stop a Janshenist from killing a civilian. We have plenty of ways to keep Menma in line when he is around others not of his religion. Hiruzen stared at the young daimyo before him. Very well, he will be closely watched, but may continue into the exam, so long as he doesn't harm one of my citizens, outside of the exams anyways. Naruto nodded in acceptance. If that is all, Hokage-sama, we should take our leave. Hiruzen took a puff on his pipe as he nodded. Yes, that was it. Though we should talk more later about your arrangements for the third phase of the exams. And don't be a stranger, Naruto-kun. We really should take some time while you are here to catch up. Naruto smiled as he and his team began to leave. I would like that, Gigi, though you're buying the ramen. And with that, Naruto quickly left via the window, leaving his exasperated team to walk out of the room. Hiruzen cocked an eyebrow at the redhead's exit and addressed the team. Does he always do that? Okasuke sighed, a slight twitch in his brow as he nodded towards the old Hokage. Yes, and you have no idea how annoying it is to guard him when he behaves this way. The masked Jounin sensei just laughed as he ushered his compatriots out of the room to track down the wandering Uzumaki, waving excitedly towards Hiruzen as he left. The man known as the professor took another puff on his pipe and began thinking to himself. Something about that masked man was familiar, but what? And what is with them traveling with a samurai from Tetsu no Kuni? It seems I might need to have Danzo send some route operatives on reconnaissance, and see if we need to be worried. The elderly man knew that he likely didn't have to be afraid of Uzumaki attacking them, especially with Naruto in charge. However, he knew to never underestimate Raizo. The next day, Konoha Academy. Teams 3 and 4 from Yuzu were calmly walking to the gates of Konoha's academy, their registration slips having told them that this was the location for the first test of the Chunin exams. Naruto quickly studied the other team that had joined them. It consisted of Kabuto, Aina, and Menma. The young Uzumaki hadn't had much time to get to know the Jansenists, largely because their cult lived in a secluded compound and went through a separate program in order to join Yuzu's ninja forces. This was largely to reduce the risk of death and injury to those who didn't believe in their religion. The two he was familiar with hadn't appeared to change much at all, though he knew better than to judge others based on appearances. The group quickly headed up to room 301, silently bypassing a small crowd that had been fooled by a genjutsu on room 201. When they entered the room, they were met with a large number of other genin, waiting around for the first exam to begin. Kabuto silently drew Naruto's attention. We should disperse our teams around and see if we can gather any useful intel on the other teams, he whispered. Naruto nodded and relayed the advice to his teammates. Naruto chose to stand near a gathering of Konoha shinobi, who seemed to be discussing something deeply. Of the gathered shinobi, he recognized Team 7 from back in Wave. Along with them was a teen with shoulder-length black hair tied in a spiky ponytail and brown eyes. His attire consisted of a green-lined mesh t-shirt under a short-sleeved gray jacket with green edges, adorned on both the sleeves and the back with a circle with a line through it. His blue hitai tied around his left arm, brown pants, and blue sandals. Then there was a rather stocky individual standing just behind the lazy-looking genin. He had short brown hair and wore a red bodysuit with armor covering his chest, legs, and arms. On the chest armor, Naruto could recognize the Akimichi clan symbol. If he is an Akimichi, then it is likely that his two teammates there are Nara and Yamanaka. They definitely have the appearance for those clans, the Uzumaki thought to himself. Finally there was the blonde-haired girl, who had her arms wrapped around the Uchiha's neck, much to his obvious discomfort. Her hair was tied in a long ponytail and she was wearing a purple, sleeveless shirt that ended just above her stomach, below which was an open front purple apron skirt over a shorter, black skirt, with short, fishnet shorts underneath. Oh, Sasuke-kun! I'm so glad you were able to make it. It has been so long since we had a chance to catch up. you simply must tell me about your adventures, the blonde blathered as she continued to hold on to the aggravated Uchiha. Fu noticed the Nara and Akimichi stepping closer to them. Hey Choji, Shikamaru, it's been too long. The lazy genin nodded to his old school friend and spoke to his teammate. Ino, quiet it down. This isn't the time or place for that kind of discussion. The named Ino walked back to her teammates. Seeing his teammates settle down, the Nara decided to address the other Konoha genin with him. There are a number of foreign genin participating along with us, so I would suggest we work with each other for the time being, share information, and whatnot. Sasuke studied the Nara for a moment before nodding. Alright, we have some information on the teams from Yuzu, not much but some. Shikamaru nodded his head. We've managed to find out a bit about the teams from Kumo, but the Kiri and IWA teams are largely a mystery. Fu decided to speak up and share her bit of information. Well, we know that one of the Yuzu teams consists of an Uzumaki Naruto, Kage Shuichi, and Shimizu Aoi. Naruto appears to be skilled with his scythe, but we didn't get a chance to see much of his skills in Wave. Aoi uses hooks and wires alongside a Jien sword. Also, whatever you do, don't insult Naruto around him. At this, a look of fear crossed Fu's face. Shikamaru raised an eyebrow at this. Why not? Sakura shivered from her spot beside Sasuke. Back in Nami, I made some comments regarding the Uzumaki out of ignorance. The killing intent that covered the room we were in at the time was suffocating, but his team managed to get him under control. Later, Gato made some threats towards Uzumaki-san. Shimizu-san just snapped. It was a massacre when he and Uzumaki-san were done. Sasuke quickly cut in, distracting Sakura from her memory. As for Kage Shuichi, we never actually saw him fight. In fact, he wasn't even at the bridge at the time. Fu snapped her fingers as she thought back to her earlier encounter with an Yuzu shinobi. Also, there is the odd one with black hair and no shirt. The guy is a total creep and just feels off. Shikamaru nodded as a frown adorned his face. Alright, the Kage, I can actually explain a few things about myself. His clan and mine have run into each other a few times in the past. Like us, he most likely utilizes shadow techniques, though in a different manner than the Nara. The Kage are also well known as being the knives hidden behind the Uzumaki, although it has always been questioned just how aware the main clan is towards their shadow's actions. Sasuke nodded. What did you find out about the Kumo genin? Ino decided to speak up this time. Well, we know that the 3 genin this year go by the names Samui, Omoi, and Karui, judging by the swords they carry and Kumo's reputation. It is a safe bet that they are Kenjutsu users. Ino paused as a devilish look crossed her face. However, a rumor has been going around that their sensei is from Kumo's Tachibana clan, which is well known for their skills in combining their right-un jutsu with their blades, so we can likely expect right-un jutsu from them as well. Naruto decided he had heard enough and made his way back towards his comrades, too focused to notice the 3rd Konoha team watching him from the shadows nearby. That's the guy, right, Shino? Asked a rather wild-looking teen with a large white dog standing nearby. All he received was a slight nod from his teammate. Sighing in exasperation, he turned to his other teammate. What do you think, Hinata? The girl merely hummed to herself as she stared at the retreating redhead. I think he would look good in white robes. For a reason the wild teen couldn't explain, that answer almost made him want to growl at his teammate. Back with Naruto, the Uzumaki had begun to share the information he had gathered from the Konoha teams, as well as getting a little bit of information from Kabuto on the AIM, Oto, and IWA teams. It seemed the other small villages had sent rather weak genin, but IWA had sent the Tsuchikage's granddaughter. We will have to be careful with that one. Best to make sure Menma doesn't go anywhere near her. Suddenly an explosion of smoke burst into the room. Alright, you maggots. Quiet down and take a seat, the first exam starts now. The smoke cleared to reveal a number of dark-clothed chunin and a scar-faced man, wearing a black bandana and trench coat, all standing at the front of the room. The chunin hopefuls quickly took their seats, and one of the chunin began to pass out some papers. Konoha Jounin Lounge. The Jounin Lounge had been altered for the chunin exams. Now it was set up to allow various Jounin sensei to watch the progress of their students throughout the exam. Jounin from both Konoha and various other villages were currently watching a screen as the first test began. Toby was sitting at a table with the sensei of Yuzu's Team 4. The man had the distinctive appearance of a Kagaya, including their usual white, loose kimono shirt and black baggy pants. Tied around his waist was a crimson rope with a large knot in the back. Toby wants to know who this new guy is. Any ideas, Kimi-kun? the slightly insane Jounin questioned. Kimimaro rubbed his forehead in annoyance. No, Toby. I'm as in the dark here as you are. The two were soon joined by a silver-haired, cycloptic Jounin. I suppose I could enlighten you two a bit. That man is Marino Ibiki, a specialist in mental torture. The Kagaya narrowed his eyes at the interloper at his table. And why would you tell us this information, Konoha trash? Kakashi blinked at the slightly hostile tone from the Yuzu Jounin. I'm simply trying to assist our old allies from Yuzu. Before Kimimaro could offer a biting retort, he was stopped by Toby slamming his hand onto the table. Toby is so happy to see Pervert-san again. How you been? Toby has been a good boy since Nami. Yes, a good boy. Kakashi slowly nodded, slightly regretting his decision to try and dig up some more information about Naruto. Yeah, I've been alright, Toby. So I see you entered your team into the exams. Do you think that they are ready? Toby nodded excitedly. Toby's team is definitely ready to ace the exams. They are good boys, just like Toby. The Kagaya decided to speak up, his attention focused on the screen. Moron, trash, quiet down, the exam is starting. Konoha Academy. The scarred man began to speak again as the Chunin sat down in chairs lining the walls with clipboards in their hands. I will be your proctor for the first exam, Marino Ibiki. The first exam is a simple written test. Everyone will start out with a total of 10 points. For each incorrect answer, you will lose 1 point. If you lose all 10 points, then not only do you fail, but so does your team. At this the man received surprised gasps, causing him to let out a slight smile. Now, you see my fine colleagues lining the wall? They are here to watch you all closely for any signs of cheating. If they catch you cheating 3 times, then you and your team will fail. Finally, if you look at your paper, then you will see that the 10th question is blank. That question will be given to you near the end of the testing period. Smirking to himself at the now sweating forms of his audience, Ibiki decided to start his entertainment. Begin. For the most part the Yuzu teams were able to get through the questions relatively easily, thanks to Kabuto. Sure, the questions were more advanced than what a genin should know, but the Yakushi had always been far too intelligent for his age. After putting down his answers, he had used a coded sequence of taps that he was sure Naruto and his team would recognize to pass along the answers. Sadly, Menma never bothered to learn the coded language and instead opted to go about the test the same way a Jashinist usually solved their problems. Halfway through the exam he got up from his chair and walked over to another genin who appeared to be done writing, quickly looking at the paper to ensure it was completed. He reached out and smashed the poor genin's face into his desk repeatedly and grabbed the now unconscious teen's paper. After the Jashinist returned to his desk, he erased the other teen's name and replaced it with his own. Menma soon found a shadow looming over him. Looking up, he noticed the frowning face of the exam proctor. What do you think you are doing? The Jashinist merely raised an eyebrow. By my count I cheated once. So my team and I should be good, isn't that right, Proctor-san? The scarred man glared down at the teen before huffing and addressing the rest of the genin. New rule. Anyone who attempts to repeat this incident is going to be instantly disqualified. This quickly squashed the hope for some of the genin in the room. With 30 minutes left on the clock, the exam proctor called everyone to a halt. Alright, maggots. Before I give you the final question, you all have a decision to make. You can opt to leave now, alongside your teammates, and try again next year. Ibiki quickly found himself interrupted by shouts. What the hell? Why would anyone choose that? The scarred proctor smirked sadistically, subtly releasing a small amount of killing intent. However, if you decide to stay for the final question and get it wrong, no matter how many points you still have left, you will fail the exam and never become a Chunin. Ibiki allowed the outraged cries to go on for a minute before cutting the angry genin off. If you have a problem with this, then you can simply walk out that door right now with your team and cry about it to your leaders back home. Most of the genin managed to tighten their resolve, but some ended up being forced out by their teammates' lack of confidence. With 5 minutes left, Ibiki decided to put a stop to the tension that had been building in the room. For those of you that remain, you pass. Before anyone could voice their confusion/outrage, they were interrupted by a large black ball bursting into the room from the window. The ball quickly burst open to reveal a banner stating, "The Sexy and Single Mitarashi Enko." In front of the banner stood a purple-haired woman, wearing a tan trench coat over a mesh shirt that barely covered her breasts. Over her legs was an orange skirt and shin armor. Alright, wimps, I am the proctor for the second exam. Mitarashi Enko, she began before a voice interrupted her speech. You're early by 5 minutes, Enko. stated a slightly annoyed Ibiki from behind her banner. Enko's eyebrow twitched noticeably, however. Before she could start yelling at her colleague, she took notice of the large number of genin still in the room. Really, Ibiki? You must be getting soft if you pass this many genin, big guy. The scarred proctor merely sighed. Or maybe there is simply a better crop of candidates this year. The purple-haired proctor scoffed. Whatever, by the time I'm done, more than half the teams will be gone. Enko brought her attention back to the fidgeting genin. Okay, maggots, you got off easy with Ibiki's little test. Meet me at training ground 44 within an hour. If you're late, you fail. And with that, Enko quickly jumped out the window. It took a few seconds for what had just transpired to register through the Chunin hopefuls' minds before they quickly jumped out of their seats and started, either heading for the mentioned training ground, or trying to find out where they were supposed to go. Naruto managed to gather his fellow Yuzu genin, and they quietly shadowed the Konoha teams to the training ground. 1 hour later, training ground 44. Enko stood before the gathered genin. Let me be the first to welcome you lot to training ground 44, otherwise known as the Forest of Death. For the second exam, your team will be given 1 scroll. You must then take a separate scroll from one of the other teams, and then make your way to the tower at the center of the forest. You have 5 days to complete this test. If you are late, you are disqualified. If you don't have all of your teammates with you at the tower, you are disqualified. If you open the scrolls before you reach the tower, you are disqualified. The proctor took out 2 differently marked scrolls and showed them to the genin. One is an earth scroll and the other is a heaven scroll. If you have an earth scroll, you must collect a heaven and vice versa. Any questions? A red-headed genin from Suna who had a gourd tied to his back and had the kanji for love on his forehead spoke up. Is killing allowed? Enko nodded. Of course. Speaking of, she paused as she motioned for one of her Chunin assistants. Minion, pass out the waivers. The faceless Chunin sighed as he began to pass out the papers to the various teams. As your teams fill out the waivers, send one of your teammates up and we will trade you for a random scroll. The Akimichi decided to voice his question. Is there anything edible in the forest? Enko stared at the teen for a moment before a laugh broke out. Of course. Assuming you can take out your prey before it kills you, even the plants in my beautiful playground would enjoy a nice bit of meat. Over near the Yuzu teams, Menma decided to speak up. Worst case scenario, you can always eat your fellow competitors, or even your teammates. The proctor couldn't help the insane smile that spread across her face. I think I'm gonna like you, kid. However, I don't recommend the second option. You don't want to be disqualified for a missing teammate now, do you? As the various genin teams retrieved their scrolls, they were each given a moment to strategize before they had to leave to their entrances into the forest. Naruto looked towards Kabuto to see if he had any plans for this test. We should separate for this portion, Naruto-kun, and only signal for each other if we get into trouble. The Uzumaki nodded his head as Kabuto walked off with his team. I'm thinking the AIM team might be the best option for our first attempt. Failing that, the Odo team would be another option. From Naruto's right, Shuichi frowned slightly. If I may, Naruto-sama, the Leaf teams could also provide for good targets. The team from Nami had at least one obvious weak link. Then there is the Ino Shikacho trio. The Nara's shadow component of the formation could very easily fall apart with me here, and without all 3 sections the formation fails. Aoi shook his head. You're wrong on a few counts, Shuichi. We know nothing of the girl's abilities. She never did fight on the bridge, and she could have improved greatly during the time before the exams. On top of that, you would have to have both more chakra and a greater control than the Nara in order to pull your plan off. Finally, a Nara's mind is never to be underestimated. From what Naruto-kun managed to pick up, he knows of your clan and will more than likely have a plan in place for if you cross paths. The Kage thought about the information for a moment before nodding. I suppose that is correct, but I still think they are valid targets. Naruto listened to the advice of his friends. There are also a number of teams that will also be after the Konoha teams. 2 of them have Hyuga members, and I doubt the Kumo team will leave them alone. There is also IWA who will more than likely go after Konoha teams on principle. He sighed to himself as he continued, I suppose, if we stumble upon a Konoha team, we can see if they have the scroll we need. However, they would be too annoying to be an actual target. The Uzumaki's companions nodded their heads as they headed towards their entry point. As the time to start arrived, the proctor's voice could be heard through the speakers. Begin! And with that, a loud buzzer sounded and the various Chunin hopefuls burst through the gates.